And welcome to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. I'm pretty sure it's Monday. I'm not going to know for a while. You changed the clocks by 1 hour. I don't know what day it is for a month. I'm terribly vulnerable to that time change, and I don't like it one bit. Our number is 888-318-7884. We're going to do some pro-life conversation this hour. If you'd like some help being persuasively pro-life, 888-318-7884. And of course, that means Trent Horn. Trent Horn here with us. He's an apologist here at Catholic Answers and the author of the book, Persuasive Pro-Life, and this book right here, Why We Are Catholic. Trent Horn, thanks for being with us.
Good to be here, Cy.
It was nice to see you on the weekend.
I know. We were at the Founders Weekend Retreat in good old San Antonio, Texas. Stayed right nearby the Alamo. And I know it's funny, there were a fair number of people on that trip that did not get my "Where is the basement of the Alamo" reference. I couldn't believe it.
I'm not surprised. You have obscure movie references a lot, but
I have one question. Where's the basement? There ain't no basement in the Alamo. The thing that got me in that, this is, of course, in the classic Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where he thinks his bike is in the basement of the Alamo. Like, if you heard someone say it, imagine if someone was like, "Where's the basement of Catholic Answers?" Would you just start, like, laughing at them hysterically?
I would not.
Because there's no basement to Catholic
I think that would be
Answers.
very rude to do that. I would not.
But I guess everyone in that scene, they're just like the idea of the Alamo having a basement.
Well, people are mean to Pee Wee Herman. You know something, Trent? When we do the pledge drives, I always say, I don't know who gave this money for the matching money, and this time when we do the pledge drive, I'm going to know one of the people because the gentleman was very generous and
Yes.
and I'll say it when it happens, but funded a full hour, and it was nice to meet the people who do that. We've never done a Founders Circle weekend out of the state of California before. It was very nice to go to Texas. Texas is easy to get to. Everybody flies there. And I've never been to San Antone before. Did you say San Antone or San Antonio? What do you Texans say?
I just say San Antonio.
Do you? And the entire reason they bring me, though, like you give a talk and socialize, and you're important because the entire reason I'm there is to insult wealthy people at the Saturday night dinner.
Well, Saturday night dinner, that's a grudge match because Saturday night we do Catholic trivia, and I'll just say that it was an enjoyable evening. That's all I'll say.
My voice is back now, but I've been struggling all day because all I did was it's kind of a Don Rickles thing, which something like that. Wouldn't you say? It's a little bit you got to be in the spirit of it.
Oh yeah, but it was a great event, and anyone who was interested in participating in it should definitely contact Catholic Answers, our development department. Christine Venditti or Dave Matheson would be glad to speak with you. We'd love to have you join us the next Founders Retreat.
Founders Circle, President's Club, all those folks. There was and a lot of folks can't travel to us, and I thought it was nice. We went to Texas. Maybe we'll go somewhere else. Texas is the number 2 state, almost the number 1 state as far as supporting Catholic Answers. So we went to see our donors, and we had a very, very good time. And now my voice is gone from playing Catholic trivia, and insulting very, very nice people for a few hours. The number is 888-318-7884. Trent Horn is our guest. Persuasive Pro-Life is our topic. If you have a question about explaining and defending the pro-life position, you are welcome to call. Trent did a very nice talk with folks and kind of a lesson where we practiced it a little bit, having pro-life conversations with people. I thought it was interesting to hear how people put into kind of practice what you said. But it seemed to me like the primary thing was don't get distracted by all the stuff that people say, to defend the pro-choice position. The primary thing is is a life being taken? That's the primary question we always want to get back to.
Well, it not just is a life being taken, but what are the unborn? Because almost everyone agrees a life is being taken. The question is what kind of life?
Yeah,
that's the question we need to answer.
Right, and so you kind of had us practice how to get back on that. And some people were very good at it. Some people struggled with it. But it's interesting when you can hear you do it, but to try to do it yourself, that's a different kind of challenge.
It's like being in 7th grade music class all over again. You can hear the scales, but somehow on the trumpet, you just can't quite get it. That was me, I guess. You might have had a different experience.
No, I was in choir, and so No, and it's extra humiliating when you can't do it singing. All right, the number is 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. Persuasive Pro-Life this hour. Second hour, we've got a great guest for you as well. As a matter of fact, you go around the village, people say, who's on the show today? And you say, Deacon Harold, and all the men say, oh, I like that guy. Oh, I like that. It's the same exact response from everybody. Oh, I like that guy. So you'll like Deacon Harold as well. I'm going to go to Owen in San Francisco, California, listening on the Catholic Answers app. We'll start with you, Owen. Thank you for your call. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hi, Trent. Thanks for taking my call. And you too, Si.
Sure. All right. Owen, glad to have you.
I just had a quick question about how would you respond to someone who holds consistent to their pro-abortion views. For example, they'll say a child or a baby is not a human until they're able to process the world around them. And if you tell them, well, what about someone who is already born but is in some sort of vegetative state? Is their life not valuable either? And they would say, no, their life is not valuable either. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, and this underscores the importance when we dialogue about the issue of abortion and we argue about it, normally we both sides usually use this kind of an argument, which is typical in moral philosophy. We will say, okay, what's your standard for X? This is my standard. Okay, but your standard doesn't account for this counter example. And so you either have to say that counter example has nothing to do with my standard, or yeah, I'll bite the bullet. It doesn't work for that counter example either. So typically what we'll do, like I taught people at the Founders Retreat, if you say, well, abortion should be legal because some children they'll grow up in poverty. Okay, well, do you think we should kill 2-year-olds who live in poverty? Most people will not bite the bullet there. So that's a counter example. And the key when you bring up a counter example is to try to pick one that is extremely sympathetic, one that everybody agrees, if it's a counterexample, to show the immorality of something, to show, oh, well, yeah, we all agree that that's wrong. So if it's wrong to kill a 2-year-old because they live in poverty, we should do the same for the unborn. But sometimes we pick counterexamples that themselves are controversial. So, for example, if someone says, well, I don't think a fetus is a human being because it's not conscious. And you say, well, what about Terri Schiavo? She was unconscious and she was in a persistent vegetative state and was never going to be conscious again. Was she a person? Many pro-choice advocates will say, no, she's not a person either. So you need to choose a counterexample to say, oh, yeah, everybody agrees that's a person. Newborn infants are a great example because almost everybody, except for Michael Tooley and Peter Singer and some people, wrote the Journal of Oxford and other places and odd people on the internet, think that they are. Everyone else says that they're persons and killing them would be wrong. So I would change the example. I would say, I wouldn't use someone in a persistent vegetative state. I might say, well, what about someone who's been put into a medically induced coma? Let's say they have brain swelling and a doctor has put them into a temporary coma and we know they will come out of the coma in a week maybe. Are they no longer a person? Would it not be murder to intentionally overdose them? So you always want to try to pick an example that's as close as you can. Also, the consciousness example, I would say, well, is your position that a person is anything that is conscious? If it's just any human that's conscious, that kind of begs the question, because consciousness is what's running the argument. I would pick like rats or pigeons. So once again, I would say if consciousness makes you a person, then rats and pigeons are persons, and killing them would be like murder. So here I'm using a counterexample, and I'm using an uncontroversial example. Sometimes I'll say dogs and cats, but some people are like, it is murder to kill a dog. I'm like, oh, okay. I understand you get attached to. That's why I pick animals people are not very emotionally attached to. Rats and pigeons, which are flying rats, and maybe even snakes are conscious, other creatures like that. There, it's uncontroversial that it's not wrong to kill them. So that would show the criteria for personhood is far too broad. So that might be kind of a route that I would take. Pick a clear example of a born person that's uncontroversially a person and yet lacks one of these personhood traits a pro-choice advocate requires. So is that a helpful start, Owen?
Yes, that's very helpful, and I definitely didn't think about the second part. So
Yeah.
I'll try and use that. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Owen. Thanks very much. Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Persuasive Pro-Life with Trent Horn. If you have questions about how to be persuasive in your pro-life conversations, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884.
Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
EWTN Radio posts 11 podcasts every weekday and over 60 per week. They're the perfect companion for the busy Catholics everywhere. With on-demand access to audio, you can pause and pick up right where you left off anytime, anywhere, and they're all free. Subscribe by going to EWTNradio.net, then click on podcasts. They're waiting for you. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Trent Horn and Persuasive Pro-Life this hour. If you've got a pro-life question, we'd love to take that call. Trent, of course, is the author of a book called Persuasive Pro-Life. He also wrote Answering Atheism and Why We're Catholic and many other books. Up next is Daniel in Hurst, Texas, watching on YouTube. Hi, Daniel. We were just in Texas. Glad to talk with you.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's great to talk to you.
Very good to talk with you, Daniel. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Okay, so I was just thinking about this. Myself, being a straight white male, it's very difficult to talk about really any political opinion, let alone abortion, especially on the streets. Women aren't going to take us seriously. They're going to say slogans like "no uterus, no opinion." Right, you hear that a lot. So what I'm thinking is, do you think we would be more effective in presenting our arguments if we brought more women with us, but more specifically minority women?
Well, first I would say that choosing another person to make an argument based on their gender or race does not improve the argument in any way, shape, or form. The Catholic philosopher Francis Beckwith, I think it's in his book, Defending Life, or in his earlier book, Politically Incorrect Death, he says, and I'm going to keep this as family appropriate as possible, arguments don't have members, people do, if you get what I'm saying here, that an argument doesn't have a gender. Okay, arguments don't have genders, though he uses another anatomical term, that arguments also don't have. Arguments don't have these things. Arguments don't have genders, people do. Okay? So an argument, like I could make an argument and I could give it, or I could write it down. In fact, I wouldn't write it down. I would just have Stephanie Gray give her own argument. It would be even better probably because Stephanie's a pro at this. But she could also give one of my arguments and it would be the same. An argument's strength does not rely in any way, shape, or form on the person making it. Now, if you're talking about being persuasive and reaching people, it is a fact of human nature that people can be a tad tribal, that they segregate themselves by ethnic groups, national groups, cultural groups. And so they're more likely to trust someone in the tribe than outside of the tribe. So if you want to just be able to reach people knowing they have these cognitive biases, then it can be very helpful to encourage other people to go out and to make these kinds of arguments, women, minorities, for example. Although what's interesting is I think many members of minority communities do make these arguments, actually, but they often make them, I'll get emails from people in other countries like Nigeria or Pakistan, people who are in the Philippines or other places. People will make these arguments where they would be considered a minority individual here, but they're not back in their own country. So I guess more it would be like people who live, an encouragement for everybody to speak out so that anyone who hears the arguments hears it from someone within their own community, and it's more persuasive. That's why I would definitely recommend anybody, but especially people from communities we don't hear from a lot in the apologetic world, women, other minority communities, anybody. Go check out our schoolofapologetics.com, schoolofapologetics.com. And I have a course there on persuasive pro-life, on defending the pro-life view that you can check out. But yeah, so it doesn't, technically speaking, it doesn't make the argument stronger, but it might make other people more open to hearing it. So I am all about equipping as many people in as many different communities as possible, all in favor of that. So I hope that's a helpful answer to your question. Daniel, you there?
Oh, sorry. I thought I was. muted.
Yeah,
My
sorry.
bad.
I should have said, was that a helpful answer to your question?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it's not that it's going to make the argument stronger, but at least that it'll pull more people in who have biases towards certain groups of people, right? It'll pull them in, but not necessarily make the arguments better. We just all need to be equipped with good, reasonable sounding points. Right?
Yeah, and I would love to get more people out there. And it's not just for pro-life, by the way. It's for any kind of argument in defense of the faith. I would like to see, I would thoroughly enjoy, I would be honest with you, I have heard from some individuals who are very critical that there are not as many public female Catholic apologists. And I would very much like to remedy that situation. So if you are a woman who would like to be more involved in apologetics, to learn how to do it better, go to my website, trenthorn.com. There's a contact form there. You can contact me. I'll point you in resources, whether you're a member of a minority community or especially women. We would love to see you doing more work. And sometimes people say to me, well, why don't you involve more apologists in conferences, or, hire this person, hire that person. Well, here's how it works at Catholic Answers. Like, we brought on Joe Heschmeyer, who is a wonderful... Cy, if I had to pick a word to describe Joe Heschmeyer, I'm going to pick the word jolly. I don't know what you would pick. Cheerful.
So it has to be a positive word.
That would be helpful.
Okay, let me think. Give me a few minutes.
Okay. Well, Joe Heschmeyer is an awesome guy. And one reason that we brought him on board at Catholic Answers was because Joe had a track record of doing really good apologetics. He was the author of the Shameless Popery blog for many years, and has a wonderful apologetic blog with substance, with charity. And this is the kind of person that we want. So, to grow in the world of doing apologetics, whether it's pro-life or others, it's good to establish yourself. Like, do YouTube videos, write blogs, get out there and do that, and establish a portfolio. And if people might say, hey, Trent, here's this woman that does Catholic apologetics or pro-life apologetics, really good. I want to find out, or this person or that person. We're actually talking at Catholic Answers about creating an apologist affiliate program to kind of do part-time work with the people who are already out there doing apologetics. So if you're out there, get in touch with me. I want to grow the vineyard as much as possible. So that's our goal. So thank you so much, though, for calling in, Daniel.
Appreciate that very much. Charitable.
Yes, Joe is extremely charitable.
Okay.
And he's concise. He's been a great addition to the team, and he was fun to have in at the Founders Weekend, actually. So that was nice. We were the two apologists. We were pulling the double duty, pulling the heavy reins for everybody.
Yeah.
We were the only two guys there.
Well, the thing about Joe, I don't know, Trent, how much time you spent around him, but he is relentless in punning. He is constantly making a pun, and he's really good at it. He finds the pun in everything.
It takes a certain kind of individual to make high quality puns. I'm
not saying they're all high quality. There's a lot of them.
Puns are that's an acquired taste for some people.
Aiden in Illinois, watching on YouTube. You are next. Persuasive Pro-Life, our topic, and the author of the book Persuasive Pro-Life, Trent Horn, is our guest. Aiden, go ahead.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh,
Sure.
we're very happy to, Aiden. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So my question was basically, what is the reason for accepting your definition of personhood, which I take is Boethius' definition?
Oh,
sure. That the Boethius' definition is that a person is an individual substance with a rational nature. Well, there's different ways you can come to an understanding of why a definition is correct. I might say that I think the best reason to accept that definition is perhaps inference to the best explanation. Of all proposed definitions of a person, that definition, it does the best job of clearing two bars. It does the best job of not falsely saying non-persons are persons, like rats or pigeons. If you say personhood is tied to a very wide property like sentience or feeling pain, that would lead to counterintuitive results of non-persons things that we generally understand to be non-persons would be considered persons. So I think it does a good job of not falsely personalizing non-persons, and it does a good job of not excluding genuine persons from the circle of persons, if you will, because other definitions of personhood will be very narrow. If they are just rationality, for example, you'll exclude beings we normally consider to be persons, like newborn infants. So I guess I might make an inference, the best explanation kind of argument, that it does the best of accounting for what we understand the essence of a person to be, that it's a kind of thing rather than just a pure functional thing. So that might be a start. I don't know what you think of that.
Right. So I think one issue that may come up is that somebody could object that it's arbitrary, because think about a different definition, like a person is a human who has consciousness, or like has consciousness in the past, or has had consciousness, something like that. It can explain everything that we want it to explain, but it has no reason to actually accept it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think what I would say here is I would just ask the person a series of questions. And you're right, there can be arbitrary elements to it. I think that also we sort of start with things that are kind of foundational, that we just start with the idea of that there are certain traits that we identify as being personal in nature, rationality, consciousness. And then we have to decide, well, is personhood, is this a type of thing that is acquired accidentally, or is it just more of a substantial property? And since we understand that the value of persons seems to endure in spite of accidental changes, like when you go from infant to toddler to adult, things like that, I think it removes the arbitrary problem there. Because, yeah, I see what you're saying as well. What if somebody just came up with another definition that worked? And people do that. The consciousness one is interesting, because I would almost say to them, I would ask them, well, why have you added a species criteria? Because what's interesting here is the Boethian definition, I would say, is far less arbitrary. For example, under the Boethian definition, if intelligent extraterrestrials, like, well, there's lots of examples one could choose, but if Superman turned out to be real, Krypton was real, and Superman came to Earth, under the definition, he would be a person. Yoda would be a person, baby Yoda, or the child, if you will, from The Mandalorian. Whereas I would critique the other person's view to say, oh, wait a minute, you added a species qualifier to it. Now your thing doesn't really work. What if we had these extraterrestrial beings or things like that came into it? Then I would say it sounds like the person would probably have to balk and say, fine, I just mean consciousness. And then I think it'll get back to the abilities problem of either excluding or including people by tying it to the present or current use of the ability. Now, you might say, well, the point is not so much the present use of consciousness, but the fact that you had been conscious at least at some point in the past. I would then start to ask, what do you mean by conscious versus just merely sentient? And why does consciousness matter in particular in this arbitrary view? But you're right. I think, though, that to get the reasoning process, we start with foundational elements of what it means to be a person, and then we try to propose a definition that makes the most sense of these foundational intuitions that we have about the nature of personhood that can survive different counterexamples that are thrown at it. So I hope that was helpful. Definitely thank you for bringing that up, Aidan. I would recommend for you and for others, if you want a deeper dive in this, Chris Kazer's book, The Ethics of Abortion, has a lot of great resources on this personhood question that I would highly recommend. Christopher Kazer. Oh, sorry?
Is it possible to ask just a really quick follow-up?
Yeah, it's just we're almost right out of time, but go real fast.
Okay. Okay, so basically Don Marquis, he reviewed Chris Kaczor's book, and his argument was that an argument like that, inference to the best explanation, it might not work because we haven't necessarily surveyed every possible criterion. So taking away bodily autonomy from women can't be justified when we haven't necessarily surveyed every possible criterion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've read Marquis's review of Kazor, because Marquis starts backwards. His argument against abortion doesn't rely on personhood. It starts with the wrongness of killing. But I think even there, his wrongness of killing account, he can't exclude every criteria there for the wrongness of killing. So I feel like his objection would kind of undercut his own objection to Kazor. But that's the buzzer. Maybe we'll have to talk about it. We go deeper on another call. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Aiden. We got to take a quick break. Right back with more Persuasive Pro-Life.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com. Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Matt Swaim here. Tomorrow on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll celebrate the feast of the dedication of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Plus news, weather, sports, and a whole lot more. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. You know why I'm saying Cy Kellett like that? I'm emphasizing it because someone reminded me that sometimes it sounds like I'm saying Psych Ellett, and they think, why is he named Psych? So I'm putting that little pause in there today, especially because of the time change. Everything is so confused. I feel upset and out of order. And
I feel really bad about the time change side because I was at Founders Weekend with you and got an extra hour in my hotel room. But my wife was home and the children were up at their normal hour, which is an hour earlier.
I never thought about that. They didn't even charge us for that extra hour in the hotel.
Daylight savings time, I don't know. I would say that it is just an absolute bane when you have small children.
No, it's not. It's standard time that's the problem. Just stay on daylight savings time. Just stop all this going back to darkness. Light is better than darkness. I believe. Have you ever read John's Gospel?
The grill lobby has control over Washington, and so
Big
they don't
grill,
want to do that because having grill and charcoal lobby, big charcoal, because daylight savings allows for an extra hour of daylight for grilling in summer, and big charcoal is not going to get rid of that hour because it would cut into their sales.
Big charcoal. Nate in Dallas, Texas. Please save me from Trent. Nate in Dallas is watching on YouTube. Glad to have you, Nate. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm sorry, but Trent's going to be there as soon as I'm off the phone. I have a question as a non-Catholic.
Can't say.
To me, from the outside, Oh gosh. Okay, hold on.
Uh-oh. I think the cat fell.
Hey, you okay?
No, sorry. Everything okay, Nate?
No. I was not aware of people sleeping near me. Excuse me.
Oh.
So,
Oh, man, Nate. Come on. You just woke him up with a Catholic Answers. All right. It's all right. It's all going to be okay. They'll forgive you, Nate. Go ahead.
Oh, Cy, make sure to play the extra loud trumpet for a new caller. And it's on speakerphone.
I know. So you
right,
discovered a sleeping person in your home, Nate. And now we've established that.
Yeah.
Go ahead with your question for Trent.
all right. So from the outside looking in, I remember just back in the 2000s that there was controversy over the stem cell research issue, especially fetal stem cells. And I thought that I remembered the Catholic stance being against all of it, not just proximate material cooperation, or not just remote material cooperation, but all proximate. And so I was wondering, Trent, is it the case that the Catholic position has changed or hardened over time? So like on the Vatican website from the Pontifical Academy for Life, there's an article that has argument 3 that closes with the third ethical problem can be formulated thus: is it morally illicit to use ES cells and the differentiated cells from them, which are supplied by other researchers? The answer is negative. And from the USCCB, talking about President Bush's stem cell decision, they say in summation, Catholic teaching rejects all complicity in abortion. And so if it's the case that they've softened over time because now research has paid off and now there's a pandemic and now they don't want to, seem anti-science or have another Galileo type of incident where they're on the wrong side of something.
Oh, that's an
scientific.
interesting take. Now, we got these vaccines now that I think Nate is equating that with embryonic stem cell research. What do you say about that?
Yeah, well, and I'd have to look at the documents that you're showing, but the church certainly has not changed its teaching that remote material cooperation with evil can be justified if there is a proportional reason. So you are allowed to benefit from a past evil if there is a proportional reason. Some therapeutics for hypothermia were developed by illicit Nazi research on human beings, for example. And we recognize that evil that happened in the past is finished, is not repeated, yet the good that's come from it we can use because we have a proportionate reason. And we're not directly willing in evil, nor are we proximately or like directly cooperating with it. Now, you're asking about embryonic stem cell research. The church has always held that stem cells, the undifferentiated building blocks of cells, the undifferentiated cells, these stem cells, if they come from a illicit source like adult stem cells, that's morally justified. You go to Dignitatis Personae, I think that was released by the CDF in 2008 or 2009. It says research initiatives involving the use of adult stem cells, since they do not present ethical problems, should be encouraged and supported. Also, however, it does talk about embryonic stem cells. The use of embryonic stem cells, even when these are provided by other researchers through the destruction of embryos, or when such cells are commercially available, present serious problems of cooperation and evil. So you cannot take the actual stem cells themselves, whether you killed the embryo or these are the actual stem cells that were taken from an embryo, and then using that actual material, just the actual these actual embryos that have been destroyed for research purposes. Even if you didn't kill the embryos, if the embryos or their parts have been brought to you, you cannot cooperate at that length. However, in the case we have, there can be other cases where research has been done on aborted embryos or fetuses in the past. And what has occurred today is not experimentation with body parts. And this would be the same thing why you couldn't use fetal body parts that have been taken from, I'd have to go back and look specifically at the language that is that's being used. It is being very clear here. You can't cooperate directly with embryonic stem cell research. Okay, you can't cooperate directly with it. But if it is the case that, let's say you have cell lines, so these are not the actual aborted fetus or embryo itself, but you have copies of the material, new cells that have been created over time that have developed many, many generations past then. And those may end up being used in medical treatments or for other things like that. Sometimes they're used to test medicines. Some were used to test the Moderna vaccine or ivermectin, which some people have used as a COVID therapeutic, though there's some controversy surrounding that. And so this Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith has said that those current therapeutics are far enough removed that they have become remote material cooperation rather than proximate material cooperation. So it does get into specific details about what constitutes one or the other. I would recommend, if you would like more resources, definitely go and check out the National Catholic Bioethics Center. That they have a lot of good literature on the fine points of the differences between doing direct experimentation on embryos to remove their stem cells to do research, or aborted fetuses and fetal tissue research, versus doing research in laboratories with, let's say you're doing research on something that was tested with a cell line whose ultimate origin was an abortion many years ago, but that in the span there has been many, many generations of cell lines that have developed, and you're not using the actual illicit material itself. Once again, I'd definitely recommend the National Catholic Bioethics Center to go deeper into that subject.
Thanks, Nate.
So, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate that. There's a lot of folks online. I'm going to keep moving. Let's go to Tom in New Jersey watching on YouTube. Hi, Tom. Welcome back. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hello, guys. So you say one of the problems with abortion, or probably the problem, is that it kills a person and it doesn't just let a person die. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, what exactly does it mean to kill someone as opposed to let them die? Now, Trent has on numerous occasions used Philippa Foot's criteria, which is you kill someone if you initiate a fatal sequence of events, but if you just allow an existing fatal sequence to continue, you just let them die. So in the case of abortion, you're initiating a fatal sequence because there was no one before you actually did the abortion. But when you do something like you're kidnapped by the Society of Music Lovers and you unplug yourself from a world-famous violinist, that's just letting him die because the fatal sequence started when he got his kidney disease. Does that sound like the correct description of Philippa Foot?
Yeah, that would be part of it. Though, yes, I do think that Foot's analysis is helpful for us to talk about what does it mean. Yeah, what does it mean to kill someone versus just not saving their life? If I'm at the beach and there's a morally relevant difference between pushing somebody's head under the water and drowning them, and seeing the guy drowning but not swimming out there to get him. And I think a lot of people would say, well, the difference is the fatal sequence of him drowning already started before you did anything, but he was doing fine and dandy till he shoved his head under the water. So I think that's a part of it, but we might have to specify the description a bit if there's a counterexample to it. I suspect you might have one, but I think that's a decent start.
Yeah, I want to give one right now. So yeah, imagine that Cy Kellett gets this really bad heart disease and he's seconds away from death. But then doctors quickly implant a pacemaker into him and that saves his life. And this pacemaker just has to be kept in him for 9 months and he'll be cured of his disease. And then you can take the pacemaker out and he'll be back to normal. And then let's say sometime before that 9-month period ends, I take out his pacemaker and then he succumbs to his death and from his disease and he dies. Did I kill Cy or did I just let him die?
Either way, I am not fond of you right now, Tom. But how do you make sense of that?
I didn't initiate the fatal sequence of events.
Trent?
Well, I guess it would just kind of be like the man who is drowning at the beach. If the lifeguard put him on a floaty and just had to take him to shore. Like if I was on another jet ski and I kicked him off the floaty, I would say that I've killed him, even though he's in a a state where he's, kind of more dependent, but has been brought back to stability, if you will. So I would say clearly there that you have that if someone is, they have been saved from dying and they've been given a temporary artifact to assist their body parts, and if I were to destroy that artifact, I would say that I would be killing that person. I am curious, do you think then there's a way to to think of the analogy then, would the pregnant woman sort of, or her uterus kind of be like the pacemaker to the child? I'm trying to see if there's an analogy here.
Well, okay, the pacemaker case, that seems to me almost equivalent to the violinist. Because the violinist, when he's plugged into you,
you're the pacemaker.
The only difference between the violinist and the pacemaker is that the violinist is being kept alive by your body, whereas inside is being kept alive by a device. So,
Trent?
Right. Okay. So I see what you're saying here. So the idea is this could have ramifications for if the pacemaker is. If turning off actually, I think I might have to go back on this, because this actually does come up a little bit in bioethics. So I might have to revise my opinion then, because part of me would want to think, also when we think about killing, sometimes we confuse it with murder, or that's. And you can murder someone either by quote unquote letting them die or killing them. Like if I just didn't feed my 1-year-old, it's like, did I let him die or did I kill him? You could argue possibly both. Everybody agrees that it's wrong. And I would say that it's killing, even though you've left them to their own devices. But in bioethics, this case has come up frequently to talk about whether it is moral to for doctors to turn off pacemakers, to turn off artificial hearts, whether the patient no longer wants to use this kind of extraordinary means to stay alive. So I think my original intuition to your thought experiment might have been driven more that it's definitely immoral for me to go up with a magnet and shatter size pacemaker, even though there it was a case of me because you could argue that it was a case of illicitly letting him die versus actively killing him. In both cases, we'd say it's wrong. Maybe it's the case that the pacemaker, it's still a case of it's keeping someone alive, and it's an extraordinary means that you might be able, if it's to turn off someone's artificial heart later, they don't want to use it anymore. That may be something that you could do, and so in that case you would be allowing a person to die. You're not killing him or her. So I guess if we look at it in that way, depending on the case, then it wouldn't really be injurious to the violinist example. That also involves the killing versus letting die distinction. But that in both cases it would be essentially a matter of letting die, and we're not, what is the obligation of this extraordinary means that keeps the other person alive? So I think, Tom, because of as in all good philosophy, your excellent question, I have a gut intuitive response that I had to morally process, and now I might have to revise it, that in both cases we would be letting someone die, but it could still be an illicit or wrong kind of letting die that is unjustified, like allowing a bedridden person to starve to death. Tom, always glad when you call in. You give me a good intellectual treadmill. I'll think it through a bit more, but I think that's helpful.
All right, we got to take a quick break, though. Right back with more Persuasive Pro-Life with Trent Horn.
Let us help you with your question today on Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Life matters. Democrats on Capitol Hill seek to make it easier for women to get an abortion. And public health concerns. The Vatican looks at inequalities across the globe.
Clear, concise, Catholic. EWTN News Nightly with Tracy Sable. Tonight, 9 Eastern on EWTN Television and Radio.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Big sale going on at shop.catholic.com. $5 flat rate shipping on everything, and everything on sale. Just head over to shop.catholic.com and check out all the cool Christmas savings. Seems early for Christmas savings, but it's not, because we don't know what the shipping's going to be like. Shop.catholic.com. Trent Horn is our guest this hour. Next hour, Deacon Harold Burke Sivers will be with us, the dynamic deacon. We're going to talk about getting prayer life and family life and work life into balance. Your call's welcome, and it's always great to have Deacon Harold with us. If you haven't listened to him before, you will enjoy him the second hour. This hour, Persuasive Pro-Life, as I said, with Trent Horn. Up next, John in Kentucky, watching on YouTube. John, thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Trent. Hi, John.
My question was, I think you may have briefly mentioned this earlier, but my question was, what should our response be to women who, well, not necessarily women, but people who would say that we don't, as men, deserve a position in this debate? I know a few responses would be, or at least one response would be, the subject of gender, doesn't matter if the issue at hand is murder, or, just because we aren't in the subjective experience of being pregnant does not, logically prove. I just wanted to hear what thoughts you have about that.
Well, do you have a response? Have you ever responded to this?
Many times, and it has. Sorry, your question's for John.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Anybody, go ahead. How about Trent?
Here, let me offer a thought, John, because I like to have fun with this one sometimes. When people say, "Oh, well, men can't have an opinion on abortion," and then I think I would ask them, why? Why can't men have an opinion on this matter? First, we think people can usually have opinions on anything. What does it matter? Are you saying that maybe you mean men can't have a public opinion or vote, or men should not have an opinion on abortion? And I would ask the person, why? Why should men not have an opinion on abortion? And they might say, well, because it does not affect them. And so I have two replies to that. One would be, actually, it seems like abortion does have an effect on men. If a man causes a woman to become pregnant, that is his child. And so it seems like he's in an odd position where she can choose to have an abortion with or without his consent. And so she gets to decide whether his child lives or dies, or she gets to decide whether he pays child support. Or it's interesting, if a woman becomes pregnant, she retains a choice about whether she wants to continue being a parent. But not like clear. I mean, to be a mother, be a parent. But the man does not get that. The woman can decide, no, I'm going to keep this child, and you have to pay child support. So it seems like it does affect men, because I would say, how do pregnancies happen without men? It seems like men are involved 50% of the time. Number two, to have fun with this, is say, are you saying then that people are not allowed to have an opinion about something if the issue does not directly affect them? Directly. So unless you are capable of having an abortion, unless, you're the one who might end up pregnant needing an abortion, you don't have a right to talk about abortion. Well, by that logic then, post-menopausal women, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, they have no right to talk about abortion because they're not going to get pregnant. And so-called transgender women would have no right to talk about abortion because because they're not women. They don't have a uterus. They can't. That's why you'll notice that a lot of these people won't say it's a women's issue. They'll say people who get pregnant should talk about this issue. I was, in fact, reading an article the other day. It is now, this article gave what I consider now to be the worst defense of legal abortion I have ever seen. And I've seen some whoppers. And the defense was saying the Texas law on abortion is wrong because it could cause mental health issues for transgender men. So, of course, a transgender man is a biological woman who claims to be a man. And so what they're saying is that these women who claim to be men, these transgender men, so-called transgender men, if they become pregnant, may experience gender dysphoria, that people will think they're a woman when they're actually a man because they'll see a pregnant individual, and to spare their mental health, they need to be able to have abortions. I will put that as now the one of the worst reasons that I have come across to defend legal abortion. But yeah, and then finally, John, what I would say is to fire back to say, well, that doesn't seem right. You're saying a person can only talk about moral issues he's directly affected by? I mean, that sounds like you can't talk about war crimes unless you are a foreign civilian or a soldier. Unless you're a soldier, you can't talk about war crimes. That's silly. We can say when the military's done something wrong. Or that would be like saying you can't be against racism if you will never be a victim of racism. That doesn't make sense. Or this is my favorite example. That's like saying you can't have an opinion on child abuse unless you have children. Saying that you can't have an opinion on abortion unless you're capable of being pregnant, that's like saying, well, you can't say child abuse is wrong because you've never had a child. You don't know what it's like. Well, when I was single, but unmarried, before I knew what it was like to have a child, I knew it was wrong to abuse children, and nothing's going to change that. So it's a terrible argument, but it takes a certain graciousness and assertiveness to help the person see that it's bad and why it's bad. So I hope that's helpful.
And I'm going to leave it there, John, because I want to get to everybody. And we have Adam in Stillwater, Oklahoma, watching on YouTube. Adam, I think you've been waiting for a while. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead with your question for Trent.
Hi, Trent. Big fan, actually. I'm in the middle of your book, Persuasive Pro-Life. So I got into a conversation recently with a friend who's pro-choice, and he believes that the unborn are persons and do have souls. He believes in God, and his entire argument was hinged on, should the government be involved in this? And he was just saying, he's using the extreme case of if the mother's life is at risk, and was just saying that in that case, the government shouldn't be involved. It should be the woman's choice. And honestly, I'm sorry, what?
No, but just in that extreme case where a woman's life is in danger.
Oh, yeah, I think you should help him see, look, okay, how about in 99% of cases, or the vast majority of cases, where it's not a life that is at risk, but certain life decisions or life choices, hopefully the person can see, oh yeah, that's totally different. But in that case, even pro-lifers disagree amongst themselves about when abortion should be allowed. Prior to Roe versus Wade, every state in the U.S. that banned abortion had an exception if a woman's life was in danger. So that's very common in the law. Now, Catholics might have a different feeling about what kind of medical interventions are okay or not okay when it comes to when it comes to a pregnancy and a woman's life being in danger. But that is a very common pro-life position, to say that when it comes to the role of government, it's to protect life. And so maybe in these very narrow cases, government will allow an exception because you're dealing with very gray ethical principles here, very specifically applied principles. But you can help them see that the broader issue is about protecting the unborn, and then we can talk about what to do in these specific hard cases once we've protected the vast majority of unborn human beings.
Adam, thanks. You hear the music, so you see we got to go, but I hope the answer was at least a bit helpful to you or got you started in a certain direction. Trent Horn is our guest. You can find him at TrentHornPodcast.com, one of the most popular and certainly one of the most helpful Catholic podcasts in the world. It's the Council of Trent at TrentHornPodcast.com. Thanks, Trent. Thanks very much.
Be here. Thank you, Cy.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers right after this. Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. Having any trouble balancing faith, family, and work? That's what this hour is about, finding that balance of faith, family, and work so that life can be really, really human, not just surviving, but living a human life. 888-318-7884. If you're going to talk about that, pretty much if you're going to talk about anybody, you can't beat getting Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers as your guest, known around the world as the Dynamic Deacon. He's one of the most sought-after speakers in the church today. He's a graduate of Notre Dame University. He's got his master's in theology from the University of Dallas. He's done tons of radio and television and other media work, and he's the author of a whole bunch of great books, including Behold the Man, A Catholic Vision of Male Spirituality. He's the co-author of Ignite, Read the Bible Like Never Before, and he wrote an absolutely beautiful book about somebody you should know, Father Augustus Tolton, the slave who became the first African-American priest, about to have a brand new book out called Our Life of Service. Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, thanks for being with us.
It's great to be with you, Cy. It really is. And I have to tell you, I missed you last month. Remember, we were supposed to speak together at that Catholic Answers conference.
I know.
Was it Omaha? I know. I was so bummed. I was so looking forward to that.
I know.
And to see you and Carlo Broussard and
yeah,
you know.
And I'm no idiot. I was so happy to do that. I just said, do not put me on after Deacon Harold. I said, who's speaking first in the morning? And I'll go. But that was a bummer. Yeah, but like so many things, I mean, the world is unreliable right now. And I never would have thought that Spirit Catholic Radio would have to cancel an event. I mean, they're the best in the world at pretty much everything they do. But it happens. And I'm sorry we didn't get to see each other.
Yeah, I did have a consolation prize, though, Si, I must admit. I saw Dr. Tracy Triscanos. I spoke down in Tyler, Texas at a marriage conference for the John Paul II Foundation, Together in Holiness. And she was there, too, so I got a chance to meet her and her husband, Jose. And so a nice consolation prize, nonetheless.
Yeah, because she was going to be up there in Nebraska with us. And she has a new book out on the Eucharist, on Eucharistic miracles from a scientific perspective. So we got to have her on to talk about that. Did you know that, Darren? She's got that brand new book out? Okay. Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, our guest this hour, and you're balancing faith, family, and work is the topic. 888-318-7884. You're a victim, like many people are, of the supply chain. I never even used the word supply chain before, and now I'm using it like 10 times a day. So that's what happened with the new book, huh?
Well, it's affecting actually the book that's coming out. It's called, as you mentioned, Si, Our Life of Service. The Handbook for Catholic Deacons. So it's focusing on the third, what's called munus. So in holy orders, there's three what they call munus. In Latin is functions, tasks, or duties, which is teaching, sanctifying, and leading. And that last piece is often called, the service ministry of the deacon. And so what the book explores is basically what is kind of the theology of diaconal service in the first part. It's a differentiated from kind of lay service. Like how, so you have a deacon and a lay person working in the St. Vincent de Paul conference in your parish. What's the difference? That kind of thing. So it gets into the spirituality. The second part of the book covers the deacon serving within the parish. And I'm quite honest about it, Si. I talk about the tensions that are there. Sometimes between deacons and the priest, or deacons and the lay people in the parish.
Never.
And it happens, believe it or not. And so I address that and talk about how we can overcome that so that we can better serve, all of us can better serve the body of Christ. And the third part of the book talks about the deacon's service ministry outside of the parish, which quite frankly, where I think the majority of the deacon's work should be. Because we're in those places being that visible, permanent sign and witness of the church when the priest can't be there, because the priest's supposed to be in the parish. Right. And so that's where we are. We're in the trenches with people, bringing the message, the life-changing encounter of Jesus Christ between Sundays. So that's what the book's about.
Do you think you could get it for Christmas? Like, would it be out for Christmas, do you think? Or
yes, it was supposed to be out already. But as you mentioned, it's a supply chain issue. So it's now they're saying December 3rd is when it's going to be widely available.
All right, I'm going to get it for some deacon friends.
When they get the copies in, they're going to send first to people who pre-ordered and that kind of thing into bookstores and stuff. But it'll be widely available December 3rd now.
All right. Once again, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, our guest, one of the great speakers in the Catholic Church today. You're welcome to call with your questions on balancing faith, family, and work. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. This balancing faith, family, and work, it's in a weird way, it's gotten even harder now that so many people are working at home.
Yeah, believe it or not, Si, that is very true. And not only that, there's been tensions that have been caused in the marriage because of spouses are staying together,
right,
spending more time together. You would think it'd just be the opposite. Oh, I can't wait to spend more time with you. But actually, that's caused tension. We've seen increase in just statistically domestic violence. We've seen increases in the use of pornography. And all these kinds of things, which is very strange. Now, for me, side, there's also a good effect as well. In our situation, we had our 2 college kids were home. So my oldest daughter was a senior, so sadly she spent her senior year in college at home and graduated virtually, which was very anticlimactic. My second daughter was supposed to study overseas, spend a year abroad for her junior year. But of course, that didn't happen, so she was home. And of course, the twins finished high school at home. So although they did not like doing the online thing, it was nice to have that extra time together as a family that we didn't think we were going to have.
Yeah.
That's the one side. But the other side was this. It brought up some significant challenges in our family, because when you start communicating with your kids as adults, and they start to form their own opinions about the world and how they see the world and how they live in the world and how they interact with faith and culture, it leads to some very interesting discussions. And I'll share a little bit of something here, Si, that also there was a little, not tension, but there was some issues that came up between myself and my wife as well. I was traveling quite a bit, and the travel really had nothing to do with it. That's the first thing people want to say. Oh, see, you traveled too much. That's what happened. No, it wasn't that. It was that we stopped having those deep conversations.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that husbands and wives talk about from their hearts, right? Because marriage is the cross. And what did Christ do on the cross, Si? He broke himself open and poured himself out in love. And married relationships in the family, the husband and the wife are also supposed to break themselves open and pour themselves out in love, in a love that's personal, loving, and life-giving. And those are things that are just often between a husband and a wife. It's not to say there's anything bad there, but when you stood at the altar and made the vows, those vows were for each other, not for anyone else.
Right.
So there's certain things you want to talk about at that level, and we stopped doing it, not deliberately, but life, Si, got in the way. So it's very interesting we're talking about this, because I myself
went
through that during that difficult balancing period. But you know what, Si, we kept our main priorities of what our family is truly supposed to be about. We're the witness on earth, the image and likeness of the family of God in heaven. So once we kept that perspective, we're able to work through the issues. In fact, I'm very happy to say now that our marriage is doing better than ever now.
Oh, well, praise God for that. And that's sometimes a crisis is required. I suppose that's what Pope Francis means about let's not just go back to what we were doing after the pandemic, but make those changes that bring a greater fullness to life. We don't want these crises, but often the Lord has a purpose for us in them.
That's an excellent point, Si. When you were speaking, it just reminded me, like when back when I was in high school wrestling, I was in the weight room several days a week. And, in order to grow the muscle, you have to tear it. So what you're doing when you're lifting the weights, you're actually tearing the muscle, and then that muscle builds back in layers. And that's what builds the strength in the muscle. And the same thing I think needs to happen in relationships, especially in the family. Sometimes things have to tear in order for it to build even stronger. And that was definitely the case for us, and I'm sure for many couples that are out there. And that's why I'm glad that we're doing this show, because I'm sure there are couples out there that are still struggling with this, still trying to find that balance and that perspective to get things back in order again. And, I don't want things to go back to the way they were before, Si. People will say, I can't wait till things get back to normal. Well, what was normal, Si? Normal was 69% of Catholics didn't believe Jesus was present in the Eucharist. Normal was the majority of people who come into the church through RCIA left after 5 years. Normal was the median age for someone who decides intellectually makes the decision, I am no longer a Catholic, is 13 years old. So they've effectively left the faith before they even left their parents' house. That was normal. We got to get away from normal. And I think this time of COVID is a time of tearing and rending so that we can build back stronger.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is our guest. You are welcome to call with your questions about balancing faith, family, and work. 888-318-7884. We'll take a quick break and come back with calls for Deacon Harold right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
I was listening to the EWTN, and you were on with one of your little snippets, and you said some words that brought me back to the church. I've been away for a long time. You don't know how much I appreciate those words, and I don't know why those particular words that day got to me.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. And I feel like sometimes you need your opinions validated. And when Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers validates your opinion, then that means you're right about something. And I am glad to say we agree with one another on the time change.
Yes, please make up your mind. What I prefer is, look, you go to daylight, and that becomes standard time, and done.
That's it.
Be done with it. Back and forth. Forget it.
Right. One more change in March. We'll get on to daylight savings time, and then just stay there forever. We never have to change the clocks again.
We're there. We're mostly on daylight savings time for most of the year anyway.
Exactly.
So,
right.
If Arizona can do it, everybody can do it.
Well, now, I don't know if that's very nice to the people in Arizona, but I get the sentiment.
Well, no, they don't change their clocks. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
I know.
So, yeah, to follow their lead.
That's right. I think the Hawaiians don't either. But I mean,
really?
I think the Hawaiians can get away with it because they have nobody on their border. Nobody even knows like what Hawaii is doing. We don't know. And I know that you're listening, people in Hawaii, but the rest of us, we don't know what you're doing. You can do whatever you want. 888-318-7884. Just please don't make us get a wristband to come and visit. All right? We just want to come to Hawaii. Yeah. Have you heard about this thing that you got to wear a wristband now in Hawaii?
No, I know that they're strict about entry requirements. I didn't know about the wristband, though.
Yeah. They get the time change right by not doing it. Again, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. One caller called Kathy from South Carolina to recommend Worldwide Marriage Encounter for spouses. She didn't stay on the line, but just wanted to throw that out to you. Is that something that you recommend to people as well?
Yes, Worldwide Marriage Encounter does a great job. And I've been fortunate, not just in the United States, but also in Canada and in Singapore, to work with Worldwide Marriage Encounter. And they really do a great job in helping to build that deeper spiritual connection between spouses.
All right. Boy, you're not joking with that. You travel the world speaking. The people from Singapore just call you up and they're like, Deacon Harold, can you help us with Worldwide Marriage Encounter?
Yeah, I've been to 19 countries, and that's the sad thing about this time now is that I haven't been out of the country since 2019, and it looks like the earliest I'm going to be going is May of next year. So
yeah, I'm going to throw something out to you, an idea for you. You need an opening act. If you're going to be traveling all over the world, you need an opening act. I'm going to send you a resume.
Love to have you, Si.
All right, let's go to Ryan. Let's see where Ryan is. Hang on a quick sec. Ryan in Monroe, Washington, watching on YouTube. Ryan, we're happy to have you.
Monroe, yeah.
You know that
I know
place?
where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, you're going to do that for the whole world. Somebody's going to call from
Well, no,
Nigeria,
it's
some
just-
small
I mean,
town, and you're going to be like,
it's
oh,
just
yeah,
state
I've been there a couple times. All right, Ryan, go ahead with your question for Deacon Harold Burke Sivers.
I just got to say thanks.
No, go ahead.
Thanks for everything. And then also, yeah, he knows Monroe because we were one of the first conference hosts for the Northwest Conference in Seattle.
Oh,
so that's why.
Very cool.
That's right.
So generally speaking, I'm wondering if you could just say a few words on, you guys are talking about, okay, the family and then building back better. What's that going to look like in the parish overall? I know as a deacon you say, you have your special role, and I've experienced that, and I appreciate that personally. But could you just say a few words to how that's going to look in the parish, whether it's in the ministry or whether it's in the refocusing, whatever it is?
That is a great question. And that's a great question, because I just thought about that when he asked that question. There definitely is a parallel between what we're seeing in the families and what we're seeing in the parish. Like, I've started traveling again, son. I've done a number of parish missions, and the numbers are definitely down. In fact, I was just in Gary, Indiana, and what they were several of the priests told me there is like they're at half.
Yeah.
So what they're seeing pretty much across the diocese is that half of the people who are coming to the men's conference are coming now. Half the people who are going to Mass and attending Mass regularly are attending now. And so there's definitely some fracture there. And part of it is, they're streaming, which is great because you're reaching people who maybe have not come to Mass in quite a while or can't come to Mass, people that are in assisted living communities or shut in at home. So we're reaching people with the beauty of the Mass, which is awesome. But there's also people that just quite frankly got out of the habit. They just stopped coming, and people want to sometimes point fingers at them, but we're as human beings, we're creatures of habit. So here's basically what happened. You have a generation of people who, let's just be real, weren't very well catechized, but they did know this: I need to go to church on Sunday. And so, because Sunday's important. And so they were going to Mass regularly, and all of a sudden, they don't have to go to Mass. In fact, they don't even have to watch Mass on television because the dispensation say you just didn't have to go. So again, I'm not saying the bishops did it on purpose or anything, but I think one of the unintended effects was that people got used to not going, or people got used to watching Mass in their slippers and with a cup of coffee in their hand. And now they're not coming back because they're used to this now. So I think what we have to do again is, how do we bring the family back together? One thing that I think would be great is to have a parish celebration. Have a big party. No fundraising, just have people potluck, bring food, have games, just have fun as a family to bring, hey, we miss you, we love you, come on back, and just have a big celebration as a way of bringing people back together in community. I know one parish that did that, that I spoke at in Michigan. In fact, Dr. Ray Garendi and I spoke at the same event, and that's exactly what they did. But they upped the ante. They were a pretty good-sized parish, so they brought in me and Dr. Ray to do some speaking, and they had games for the kids. They brought in like these little, like those big jump
houses things.
Jump houses and stuff, and it was really something. It's like a little parish festival, and again, as a way of bringing people back together. Now, catechetically, I think this is a wonderful opportunity to do family catechesis. What do I mean by that? Typically what happens is when parents drop their children off for First Communion or confirmation or something like that, the parents go do something else and pick the kids up later. And then they may or may not have a conversation about what that child learned during that hour and a half. How about family catechesis? I see more parishes doing this, where they're doing either full family catechesis, so the parents are there while their children are going through the class, or they have a parallel class for parents at the same time that the kids are getting instruction. So now you're catechizing the entire family. Now they can go back and actually bring the faith in a deeper way into their home. So it's not just meal prayers, bless us, O Lord, but now they're actually having conversations about the faith, and they're maybe making a more intended, a more purposeful prayer in their family. You know, they're praying before they go to bed, and they're praying when they wake up. And I think those kinds of things will help start to revive parishes again. That was a great question.
What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I appreciate the elaboration, and I think it's kind of funny because we've been doing Generations of Faith for like 10 years where we bring in families, and so that's definitely been something related. And we had a giant parish picnic bringing people together. So, I mean, I'm seeing it reflected in my own parish, but I can see that reaching out again, trying to do something with the families would be great.
I was just thinking,
I appreciate that.
As you were saying it, Deacon Harold. Thanks, Ryan. That we got to do that in my parish.
Even one last thing, the personal touch, right? Calling people, visiting people that you haven't seen for a while. Just get a group of parishioners and the deacons, you know, maybe the deacon to keep it organized in your parish. Just go and say, hey, we haven't seen you for a while, you know, and that kind of thing. Make that personal attention, that personal touch.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers is our guest. Thanks again, Ryan, for the call. The number is 888-318-7884. We're talking about getting back to balancing faith, family, and work. Life has changed. Life has changed a great deal in the last year and a half or so. And for many people, I'm sure that has included all kinds of positive changes. For many, it's been very, very difficult and continues to be. I want to talk about balancing faith, family, and work with Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. Give us a call, 888-318-7884. We're going now up to Ontario, Canada, listening to EWTN on Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Sam in Ontario, Canada. We're happy to have you, Sam. Go ahead with your question for Deacon Harold.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Sam Zad, and I'm a parishioner Catholic here in Kingsville, Ontario, Canada. And my question for Deacon Harold, which I really respect, I've seen him many times, and I love his conviction and passion and courage. And to me, that's impressive. We need more of that. We need more male examples and heroes, so to speak, for the young people to look up to, and Deacon Harold, in my opinion, is one of those men. So my question is, instead of concentrating on this, in my opinion, overused term, build back better, but by so many politicians and medical bureaucrats have used recently, I think it'd be better if maybe we could use the term build ourselves better. And I just wanted to see if
that resonated.
What Deacon Harold thinks on that.
Yeah, so I love that. First of all, thank you, Sam, for your wonderful comment. Yeah, I think it's a both and, right? So you know, when we leave Mass, we have received Christ in word and sacrament, and then we have that mission and that call to go out there and be Eucharist to the world, to witness to the power of Christ's love. But you can't do that unless you are convicted yourself, right? So there is a building up of self, and I know, for example, Sam, I've used this time at home to delve more deeply into the scriptures, into books that I really haven't paid much attention to before, like Proverbs, for example. You know, I did a kind of a deep dive personally, spiritually into the book of Proverbs and things like that to kind of build myself up. But the thing is about us as Catholics is that, you know, we're not just one string on the violin, right? It's when all of the strings are played in harmony, it's now the instrument has sense and has meaning and purpose. So we're all part of the body of Christ. And so we build up our individual strengths, our individual gifts in cooperating with the grace of the sacraments so that we can go forth together as the body of Christ. You know, so you build yourself in order to build communities. And the way it works is we're connected to the family. We build ourselves up, especially as men, as you mentioned, Sam. We have strong families. Now, each individual in the family is working to build themselves as a part of the body of Christ, but yet they do it together within the context of a family, just like a monastery, right? Just like nuns in a convent. They each individually have their individual convocation, but yet they come together in community. And the same thing in the family. And what happens then, Sam, we build ourselves up. We have strong families. We have a strong family, we have a strong church. We have a strong church, we take back the culture. Right? So I think it's both and, Sam.
That meet with your approval, Sam?
Thank you. I appreciate your candid answer, good deacon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah, there's something in us that maybe it's just because we live in the United States, which is a heavily Protestant country, I don't know, that forgets about the sacramental nature of Catholicism. And now more than ever, it's easy to just forget about it because you've been living without it in many cases for a year and a half.
Yeah, that's so true. And we have to reconnect ourselves with our faith again. And I think that starts with a deeper appreciation of the sacraments, most especially the Eucharist.
888-318-7884. 888-31-TRUTH. Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, our guest. Your calls welcome on Balancing Faith, Family, and Work.
This is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Thank you for listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Most of us Catholic parents agree our number one goal in life is to pass on the faith to our children. But here's the bad news. Today's world has a million ways to steal your kid's soul. Don't be afraid, says Father Sebastian Walsh. God loves your children even more than you do, and He desires their salvation more than anything. In his groundbreaking new book, Always a Catholic, Father Walsh shows you how to cooperate with God to bring about the fulfillment of His will for your kids. Always a Catholic reminds us that keeping our kids in the faith is about the way we live our Catholicism in our own lives and as a family from day to day. Order your copy of Always a Catholic by visiting shop.catholic.com today or ask for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Matt Swaim here. Tomorrow on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll celebrate the feast of the dedication of the Basilica of St. John Lateran. Plus news, weather, sports, and a whole lot more. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Pretty hard to find a better way to start a week. It's Monday. Deacon Harold Burke Sivers is here with us, and you are welcome to call. I'm going to go to the calls right now, and I will get to you, Marley in Minnesota, coming up right now. But I just want to, again, mention to folks that Deacon has a brand new book coming out, and this might be a great book to give the deacon at your parish or the deacons at your parish. It's called Our Life of Service, the Handbook for Catholic Deacons. It's from, if I'm not mistaken, from Ave Maria Press. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. And you can't get it yet, but if you order it, you'll have it in time to put it in your deacon's hand for Christmas. And what a nice Christmas gift for your deacon. The number here, 888-318-7884. Marley in Minnesota, listening on 88.1 FM. Thank you for waiting patiently. Marley, go ahead with your question for Deacon Harold Burke Sivers.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I'm a Catholic school teacher in Minnesota, and I'm also a new mother.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Between my vocation as a mother and my duties at the school, I'm just having a hard time balancing the two between working full time and then having to sometimes bring work home with me. So I'm wondering if you have any comments about that.
Well, I'll say
Trying to
this
balance
before
the two.
Deacon Harold answers. There's like a million moms going, "Yup," like
Right.
every new mom knows that story. But Deacon, what might you say to Marley?
Yeah, and Marley, you bring up a great point, because school teachers are one of those professions that you can't just work from home. Now, you know how many teachers I spoke to who did not like doing the online thing at all. They didn't have a vocation to be a teacher, so they can sit behind a computer and try to teach kids from behind a computer screen. You know, so unlike other professions where you can work from home effectively, teaching is not one of them. And so you're right, Marley. So you're right in the thick of it. But we have to remember what our priorities are. Number one, relationship with God. Number two, family. Number three, everything else. Why? You know, I said that once, and the guy said to me, "Deacon, I thought you put your family first." And I said, "My friend, if I'm not right with God, then I'm no good to my family." So that always has to come first. Now, sometimes the tension happens between the second two, relationship with family and work, right? Because sometimes they can sometimes flip. I mean, just being realistic here. Sometimes the family's more important, and sometimes the work has to be more important. And you're trying to figure out how to balance those two. So for you, you have a brand new child, and congratulations. And I remember for myself, we had a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and newborn twins. Right. So I did take some time off to help my wife with all of that, but then I had to go back to work. So the most important priority is right now is for you to be with your daughter, especially in these early formative years. Now, your husband can help you with that, but quite frankly, the mom is the essential one when they're really small like this, and as they're developing. So maybe you made the cut back a little bit. Maybe you do part-time instead of full-time. You maybe take one less class. Now, that does probably mean a little less revenue for you. And plus, I'm not sure if the school even will allow you to do that. But I found that a lot of employers have been quite accommodating during this time of COVID and understanding family situations, because God will bless you if you honor him. So when you stand before God in heaven, Marley, he's not going to ask you how. He's going to say, "Give me my talents back. I gave you the talent of motherhood, and I gave you the talent of being a school teacher." And he's going to want you to multiply those talents. But he's also going to make sure that your daughter gets to heaven. Yeah. Right? So that's why the family has to take priority over the work. And if you prioritize your family, then God will help you to provide for them. When I left my job in 2012, Marley, I took a very significant pay cut. But I decided, you know what? God has asked me to make this change, and I knew that God was calling me to it, because I know how I know. I was trying to get out of it, and God wouldn't let me. But what God has done, Marley, he's not only strengthened my family during this time, but also increased my income in ways that I didn't anticipate. So God is good. If you're loyal to him, and if you're faithful, and if you really work hard at that priority, relationship with God, strengthen that relationship with him in deep, intimate, personal, loving, and life-giving communion, and then reflecting that love in your family, all the temporal stuff will work itself out.
Marley, what do you think?
Thank you very much. A lot to ponder.
It is. How old is the baby?
She's 6 months.
Oh, Lord.
Oh.
You are right in the thick of it. God bless you.
I miss when I tell you, Marley, really appreciate them. I know it's just probably be hard and there's a lot of challenges, but I tell you, my twins just turned 18 and they went off to school, and now we're empty nesters. And I'm like, man, I wish they were small again.
I know.
It's weird. The house is so empty now. It's just very strange. But really appreciate that time, Marley. It's a very beautiful, special time.
Yeah, especially at like the 11th or 12th time you're up in the middle of the night. Try to keep that appreciation up. But that's the part we forget, though. Like I have the same thing. I think I went through depression when I finally realized there's no more kids coming and these kids are growing up. Like, this is not going to be the rest of my life. I felt so sad. But some of that is unrealistic too. Like you forget, well, yeah, but you were exhausted for a decade. You never slept. And so maybe it's okay to move on.
Let's be real. You are absolutely right, Si. There were times you're like, man, I wish these kids would get out of here.
Yeah, right.
I wish there were adults that out of here. It's just out of frustration with what's going on at the moment. But it finally does happen, you look back and you think, where did the time go? Everybody talks about how fast it goes, but it really does.
I know. It sounds like a cliche, but it is the truth. You get to a certain age, you go, what happened? It's over?
Yes.
Like I was just getting started.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, maybe Marley, there's a one-word prayer that mothers have that it can replace all those rosaries and things you were saying before if you're overwhelmed. And that one-word prayer is help, and the Lord helps. The Lord will help. God bless you, Marley. Thank you for the call, and congratulations again on the beautiful new baby. I'm going to go to Heath do I have time? Yeah, I have time. I go to Heath in Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio, because if you're in Nebraska, you're probably listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. Heath, thanks for your call. Go ahead with your question for Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
Hi. So my question kind of borders the line of faith and kind of, managing familial relationships as far as, I've been told in the past, in my wife's side of the family, I actually kind of encountered this just recently. Is it okay to attend a Catholic's wedding where they fell away from the faith, and they're no longer going to be, or they're not going to have a Catholic ceremony attached to the wedding? How do you kind of navigate those waters, not attending the wedding, where you feel like you're not morally able to go, but also not harming the relationship of your family because you're not able to attend? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heath. Great question. So let me just ask a couple things, Heath. So did this person, did they just fall away from the church, or did they just say, I don't want to have anything to do with the Catholic Church. I'm not Catholic anymore?
So, my wife's cousin, this is who it was, they were catechized growing up. They didn't go to Catholic school or anything growing up, but they went to CCD and things like that. And they just chose they're not really practicing their faith right now anymore.
Okay.
And they just kind of chose to not have a religious wedding. Mostly, I think a lot of it was that her husband now is not, a Catholic, or never was a Catholic.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Very good. The reason I asked that is because it's very funny, Heath, because that's exactly the situation I'm finding myself in now. I have a cousin of mine, and we're going to be attending the wedding in upstate New York this weekend, as a matter of fact. This was someone, again, not well catechized, grew up Catholic, basically going to church on Sunday kind of thing, and kind of got the sacraments. So they're getting married at this beautiful place in upstate New York, but it's not a church. And he's marrying someone who's not Catholic. So I'm and my family, we're going to the wedding, not only because I knew this young man since he was a little boy, but because I think the witness that we can provide for them. He obviously he knows who I am and what I do. And so I think my presence there and the gift that we're going to give them, which is something that's faith-based, I think the fact that I'm going to sit down with them and have a conversation, short one, but it was still a conversation about the importance of faith in their life now that they've committed their lives to each other, and use that as an opportunity for witness and evangelization. even though at this point, because of the poor catechesis, that's why I asked the question: did they deliberately say no, or just not poorly catechized? Because if they're poorly catechized, you can plant a seed and allow the Holy Spirit to work. Remember the parable of the sower, Heath? Jesus said, the sower threw the seed, and but God, what does Paul say? I seeded, Apollos watered, God gave the yield. And so by attending the wedding, I intend to throw a very big seed of faith toward my nephew. And so when that seed lands on his heart, over time, and again, God works in his time, and God's timing is always perfect, not our time. That seed will be God will give it sunlight and fertilizer and allow the seed, the faith, to grow. But the seed can only grow, Heath. The plant can only grow if the seed is there. So God has given us work to do to be witnesses of his love by throwing the seeds and not being afraid to share our faith in love, which I plan to do. And hopefully I'm going to pray for him and his new wife, and that the seed bears very, very deep fruit in their relationship, in their marriage, and in their family.
Heath, we have to go to a break. Thank you so much for the question. I hope that answer was helpful to you. Another example of how you're just always going to get the truth from Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. And I hope that's helpful to you as you make your decision. We're talking about, well, the world has changed, and we all know it, and so much has changed. And if you're struggling to find balance, faith, family, and work balance, you're welcome to call with your question for Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884.
It's all about the truth. Catholic Answers Live.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The people who call More to Life are often hurting so much. I just want to reach through the radio and hug them. I want them to know how loved they are and how much God wants to fill their hearts with His healing grace and His deep desire to completely transform the life of anyone who's open to the movement of His Holy Spirit.
More to Life with Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Do you want to end abortion, halt the attack on traditional marriage, and ensure religious freedom for ourselves and for our grandchildren? To do this, we must convert the culture. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a grassroots initiative that recognizes this need and takes it to the streets. If you're interested in peacefully sharing the gospel in your area, visit streetevangelization.com to learn more.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Lots of people already doing their Christmas shopping, and that's probably a wise thing this year. And if you maybe want to give the gift of some faith-related books or CDs or DVD. Do people still do CDs? I don't know. Maybe I just aged myself. But you can buy all kinds of stuff over at shop.catholic.com, Catholic stuff that you can share with folks. And everything's on sale with $5 flat rate shipping. Just visit shop.catholic.com and find what will make that other person happy on Christmas morning when they open that present. 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. I just wanted to tell you, somebody on Facebook checking in from Shanghai to say hello. So because you mentioned your world travels earlier, I just want you to know. I mean, I've
never been to China. That's China and India are the two places I want to go that I haven't been to yet. So,
well, yeah, I've never been there, but I have friends there, Deacon. I just wanted to brag about that.
Awesome.
Catholic Answers friends in Shanghai. We're talking about balancing faith, family, and work in this very much changed world. If you have a question for Deacon Harold, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. The work thing, it seems like I don't think anybody knows, and maybe you have a sense of this, Deacon. I don't know, but there seem to be jobs everywhere. There seems also to be people who are not going back to work. I don't know how to make sense of that, about what is motivating people. Are people afraid, in your experience, afraid to go back to work? Or maybe they've come to the decision, I never liked work that much before, and now they're trying to find a new way in life.
Yeah, I think a couple things happened there. I think I'm not sure what they call it, the stimulus package, whatever it was. When they were basically handing out money. So people, if they can get money for free or work for it, they're going to get it for free, right? But I see the help wanted signs everywhere, particularly in the service industries where you have to be around people. So I think part of it is some fear, even though hopefully now we're on the other side of this thing. But there's still a lot of fear, still a lot of trepidation. I think people are finding alternative ways to make money, doing a lot of things. We're working online rather than have to be around people. And, we have the supply chain issues, which is why there are so many places hiring right now. And we have to understand that when we work, we honor God. In his rule, St. Benedict, the kind of the linchpins of the rule are ora et labora, pray and work.
Right.
And for monks in a monastery, what we're talking about today, St. Benedict does this beautifully balancing work and prayer in the monastic family, by giving an importance to prayer and an importance to work, where work, in a sense, becomes your prayer, because you're honoring God in your work. By fulfilling your vocation, you're honoring God. And so I think we've lost a sense of that during COVID. And so I hope what happens now is that hopefully maybe people listen to the show or start to be motivated to start to work again. I know for myself, I was very much looking forward to speaking in person again. I've done about 45 or close to 50 virtual events of all kinds, conferences or retreats or, things like that. And it's awesome as that's been, it's not me. Because ultimately, Cy, we are an incarnational church, right? God no longer wanted to be far away from us. God didn't send us a text or a Skype or a Zoom. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us because he wanted to touch us with his own hands and love us with his own heart. God got personal.
Yes.
And so we cannot be afraid to be that incarnational church, especially in our vocation to our work.
Again, the number 888-318-7884. John in West Virginia, listening on EWTN, is next. John, we're happy to have you. Go ahead with your question for Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
Deacon Harold, it's a pleasure. I certainly miss hearing your voice on Morning Glory every morning on the way to work. But my question would be, I am in the diaconate formation program, year 2, Diocese of Wheeling, Charleston. And my question would be, when you were in formation, how did you balance work, studies, and especially your relationship with your wife? My kids are grown now, and they're out of the house, so it's more about my wife than anything.
Well, John, that is a great question, because I'll tell you this. When I started the program, I was 30 years old. And it was a 6-year process for me, including getting a master's degree in theology. And we had no children yet when I was accepted into the program. And so we had 2 of the kids born during formation, and the twins were born 2 weeks after ordination. And so, I totally see where you're coming from there. And so here's the thing. The priorities that I mentioned before still hold true. Relationship with God, family, and then everything else after that. So listening to my wife was extremely important. There were concerns from the diaconate board because they had never ordained anybody as young as me or with children as young as mine were. And so we had to have a special meeting with the bishop and the archbishop, and he felt that we could be a strong witness to family life. But the key, John, the absolute key for me was listening to my wife. You know, when she said, these are the times I need you home, I made sure that I was home. There's no, I mean, you know, I'm ordained as a deacon, so, you know, it's one of those things, I can't wait to be doing stuff. You know, we went through formation for so many years, now I actually get to do things. And so sometimes, you know, you just want to jump in there, but you take a deep breath. We got time, right? I mean, once you're ordained, you'll never stop being a deacon. But your family starts to be your first priority, because what you don't want to do in your situation, John, since your kids are gone, you don't want your wife to think that the church is now your mistress. Where she feels you're gone so much that you're almost having an affair. You know, you don't want that, because without her, yes, you couldn't get ordained. I mean, that's the formalized process in our archdiocese. Unless the wife gives her formal approval at several important steps along the way, you don't move forward. You know, and my wife was completely on board and supportive from day one, because she knew that God was calling me to something. You know, and when we discovered the diaconate, you know, as long as I listened to her and honored her and respected the time she wanted me to balance that, you know, with her and with the parish, I honored that. God made it all work out, John. It's been great.
What do you think, John?
Thank you so much. That's wonderful advice. I will take that, and God bless, and thank you.
Hey, Deacon.
And I'm praying for you, John, that now you're in year 2. How many years is it in your diocese?
It's a total of 4, and we have a total of 22 men. So of spirit-filled men loving Jesus Christ. So
praise God.
It's a great group. So we're blessed.
And I'll be praying for you guys. I'm praying for all you, John. Thank you so much for your call.
And maybe look out for Our Life of Service, the handbook of Catholic deacons, the new book that Deacon Harold's got coming out very shortly.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you. Our number again, 888-318-7884, talking about balancing faith, family, and work. You know, I was struck when you were talking about work, because I know you're a Benedictine. Is it called an oblate? A Benedictine?
Oblate, yeah. So
oblate,
for the Benedictines, they call their third order, like, you know, the Franciscans, Dominicans call them third order.
Yeah.
But Benedictines call them oblates, oblatio, offering. You know, that's just the different language the Benedictines use.
But that Benedictine view of work is really under attack, because I think a lot of people feel like the work that they're doing doesn't matter. You have to understand that the work that you're doing doesn't matter. And I think people feel that way in part because society is so large. I mean, billions of people in these interconnected systems. It's not like you're sitting down, you know, to chisel out the legs of a chair or something where you can see why that matters. What do you say to folks who just have that sense of my work life doesn't matter?
Well, it does matter, but here's the problem, Si. It's when your work becomes your life. When you begin to identify yourself with your work. That's not the way it's supposed to go. You honor God by working, because everyone has a vocation. So our primary response to God's call is to figure out what our vocation is, because we were put on this earth for a purpose. And no matter what vocation we're called to honor God. It doesn't matter if you're working at McDonald's sweeping floors. It doesn't matter if you're working in the oil field. Doesn't matter if you're an amazing host for the greatest Catholic apostle in the world, Catholic Answers. It doesn't matter if you're the Pope. It doesn't matter. But you cannot be defined by your work. So, for example, Si, if something happened to you, couldn't work at Catholic Answers anymore, you can say, well, I have no more identity because I'm no longer at Catholic Answers.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do see what you're saying.
As important as your work is, it is not who you are. It is not how you identify. You know, you are a son of God, and God has called you at this particular point in your life to be the host of Catholic Answers, and your witness in doing that has really helped form and shape people's hearts and bring them closer to Christ. I mean, if God asked me to stop speaking tomorrow, I'm like, okay, God, what's next now?
Yes, I see what you're saying. Right.
I am not identifying myself as the dynamic deacon, whatever the heck that means, or I'm Deacon Harold, whatever that means. I am a son of God who continually want to discover God's unfolding will in my life. And so I have to identify as that first and then use my gifts and talents to honor God in whatever work he has called me to.
Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, thanks. I feel like I've recovered from the time change now. You fired me up. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You can find, is it deaconharold.com? Give me a website people can visit. Deaconharold.com.
That's it,
Okay, great. You can find all of his books there. You can get him to come speak in your parish. Just make sure you put some tape on the windows because it gets wild when Deacon Harold's speaking. Thanks so much, Deacon Harold. Can we have your blessing before we go?
Sure, may Almighty God bless you and keep you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. All right, we're back tomorrow with Open Forum. We'll see you then, God willing, right here on Catholic Answers Live.